Hi, and welcome back to What the Flick. I'm guesting today. I'm Tim Grierson with the always wonderful Christy Lemire.
Always wonderful.
Always nice to have me back, and also Scott Nance for the first time from Access Hollywood. Welcome, Scott.
Yes, thank you.
He brings enthusiasm.
He brings enthusiasm. At 8 o'clock in the
Energy.
morning. We're next going to talk about the Danish Girl, and Christy's going to describe it to us.
This is your Oscar bait of the year. During the heat of award season, the Danish Girl is your very safe and respectful Oscar bait. So Eddie Redmayne, hot off of his Oscar win last year for The Theory of Everything, transforms himself once again to tell the real-life story of painter Einar Wegener, who always knew deep down that he was really a woman inside. And that was kind of revolutionary at the time in 1920s. And it's about him and his wife, who's also a painter, Gerda, played by the lovely Alicia Vikander, who's also on a roll this year. And it's how their marriage withstands this change as it manifests himself and how he finds the courage to live his true self. It's directed by Tom Hooper, who won an Oscar also for The King's Speech. It's super duper Oscar-licious. Take a look.
I want to sketch you. Lily.
We should go out tonight. Give them something different.
Lily.
You're exquisite.
You're different from most girls. I feel I'd need to ask your permission before I kissed you.
Exactly what happened last night?
There was a moment when I wasn't me. There was a moment when I was just Lily.
So, okay, it's super zeitgeisty. It comes along at a time where there's this added importance to telling this kind of story, and added relevance to telling this kind of story between Transparent, which I hear is a great show. I've never actually seen it. And
Tangerine.
And Tangerine. I would say Tangerine is the transgender film you need to go see. I love Tangerine.
That was amazing.
It was amazing. But this is really different. This is really safe. And also, of course, Caitlyn Jenner. I don't know. It's beautifully shot. Everyone's good in
I took
it.
the bait. Talk about Oscar bait. I took the bait. Hook, line, and sinker. It grabbed me by the mouth. It pulled me in. I was chopping away at the little carrot on the, you know, I just took it. I thought it was a beautiful film, exquisitely shot. Some people felt like when I saw the film at the Toronto Film Festival, that Tom Hooper's style was a little pretentious and a little self-aware, and it is, but it is a beautiful film. And I just, when the movie was over, I said, let's see, I'm going down the checklist of all the different nominations it can get. Best Picture, probably. Maybe Director. Actor for Eddie Redmayne. Actress for Alicia Vikander. Then I'm thinking cinematography, makeup, costume design, score. It is, you know, editing, is sound mixing, all of it. All of it. I mean, it could get more than 10 nominations. And I think it should. Just because I feel like there's a little bit of backlash because Tom Hooper did win the Oscar for Best Picture and Best Director for The King's Speech. People are, okay, do it again, and now their expectations are so huge. But regardless of the fact that it is such a topical movie because of the shows that you talked about, like Tangerine, and a movie like Tangerine and Transparent, and of course the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing. So take that out of the equation. Eddie Redmayne's performance in this movie is amazing. And I feel like he's up there with Leonardo DiCaprio as the frontrunner to win Best Actor at the Academy Awards, which would mean, you know, he'd be up there with Tom Hanks as a back-to-back Oscar winner. I think he deserves to win. It is an incredible, incredible performance. His transformation, his commitment, it is hypnotic. And Alicia Vikander, you know, she's not just the suffering wife.
No.
I feel like she has the more important role.
I was going to say, she's actually better in this, I would
she's
say.
actually the Danish Girl, I would say. I mean, she is the Danish Girl in the movie. I mean, I think for me, I'm kind of in between, I think, the two of you in terms of how I feel about it. I've actually seen it twice now. And, you know, Tom Hooper's style, I'm never going to like any of his movies as much as The Damned United.
I was going to say, that was really
good.
That was great.
That had energy to it.
Yeah, and I think that Hooper in general since then, though I actually do sort of admire Les Mis in terms of just how, like, kind of show-stopping it tries to be at every single second.
Russell Crowe ruined that movie.
Well,
You should not be allowed to sing in public.
be that as it may, you know, I think that there is to what you were saying before, Christy, I think there's a certain amount of blah tastefulness in the movie. There's a certain amount of prestige picture kind of trappings to it. But with that being said, I have to say that beyond the fact I think that she's actually better than he is in the movie.
I agree.
I think that what really sticks out to me both times in the movie is, I've seen it, is that there is this idea about how the journey that Lily goes on
Yep.
actually requires two people, and that it actually requires both of those people kind of buying in a certain way. And I think what she does in the movie that's so strong is this idea of to love someone and to support someone and want to honor what they want, but to know you're going to lose that person in the process. In some ways, what's interesting about Eddie Redmayne in terms of this movie and his last movie that he won the Oscar for, Theory of Everything, is that both movies are actually about the wife having to learn to let go of her husband.
They're very
Exactly,
similar
yeah, it's a
structurally.
very
yeah.
good point.
In very
Tim.
different ways, and they're both about, and I think that both movies, in their own way, are about the struggles that the husband goes through while acknowledging that for the wife, it's also very difficult. It's also very, very hard for her. I think what I admire about this movie, though, I think it is too tasteful in a certain way, and there's a little bit, like Alexander Desplat's music, I usually tend to
gorgeous.
like,
I love
but
it.
this one feels a little too like wallpapery in terms of it. It's sort of like
a good way to look at it.
everything is very like it's generically good in terms of what he does. But I think where the movie has its real heart and its real soul is sort of acknowledging this idea of what she has to give up to let Lily become Lily. I think because of the subject matter, there's going to be a certain amount of people who are like, well, let's see Eddie Redmayne's transformation. I hear this movie's about, transgender people. Let's see, but the movie I think is very much almost as much about a love story and the idea about sacrifices and loving another person enough to let them go and what she has to do. And though I think Redmayne is good, and I like him as an actor just across the board.
Yeah,
I think
I
that
do
he's
too.
incredibly sympathetic on camera. The second time I watch it, there is a little bit too much of a self-consciousness, I would say, and it's
I agree
hard.
with that.
And it's
I
hard
agree.
to know because
Yeah.
I think what the movie makes very clear is that when Lily went through the surgeries that she went through at the end of this movie, this was groundbreaking.
Sure.
No one had done this
Yeah.
before, and also what the movie I think establishes really well is that everybody that Lily kind of comes in contact with says it's probably a chemical thing. You're having some sort of mental
Right.
issue.
You're insane.
You're insane. Take this. Let's do like radiation.
Electroshock therapy.
Yeah,
at one
electroshock
point.
therapy.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
movie does a really great job of saying how incredibly difficult it was for Lily to go through what she did because there was no precedent for what she was attempting. But at the same time, I find myself not as interested in that as much as I am in terms of the two of them and their relationship together and watching Gerda, the Alicia Vikander plays, Gerda letting letting Lily go essentially and essentially losing her husband. I found that to be the most poignant elements of
Right,
this
and
I
then
agree
and
with
it
that.
evolves
Yeah.
because at first she's okay with it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like she comes home and finds him in her negligee and freaks out.
Right.
She's accepting of it,
Yeah.
which is sort of revolutionary in its own way, especially for that time. But at first she's like, this is a phase, it's a fun, playful thing we can do. It spices things up a little bit, whatever. And then she realizes, oh no, he's not playing. This is who he is. He is Lily. And so, yeah, I agree with you. Her transformation to me is more compelling, and she's in her own way got a bigger arc.
Yeah,
Completely agree. Yeah.
And it sounds strange because he's the one who gets his penis lopped off. But I mean, but in her, she's the one who has to make really difficult choices where his aim is true. Like he knows who he is, and she's got to navigate really, really tricky, difficult waters. There are other people in their marriage who come in as friends, as maybe more, who try to help but also complicate things further. I always butcher this name, Matthias Schoenaerts.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just gonna practice that one for a while. And Ben Whishaw comes in, and they fulfill other needs. But Gerda's loneliness to me is the thing that it lingers after it's over.
Yeah.
And her sacrifice.
And along the same lines, I will say that, and this is, I'm not going to spoil anything. I think that there is a moment near the end of this movie where someone actually understands what Lily is going through, and someone basically essentially says, I know what you're talking about. You're not crazy. And there is something, I think, immensely moving about, because I think whether it's about Lili or about Gerda or about them as a couple, I think this movie is very much about being seen. Because there's also about, with Gerda, when they start out, they're both painters. And obviously this is based on a true story.
Yep.
Both of them were painters. And her husband was a much more successful, well-known painter when they started out together as a married couple. She becomes more successful and she wants to be seen as an artist in her own right. And so in some ways, it's also about her wanting to be seen. She wants to be acknowledged as an artist. Lili wants to be acknowledged for who she really is. And in some ways, the fact that they sort of share that journey and are kind of get this confirmation at the end, again, I found it kind of incredibly moving. I think the thing that's hard about The Danish Girl is because, going back to this Oscar bait conversation, there is sort of like this cloud of worthiness over a movie like this.
I agree.
And it's not to say that
take the cloud away, the movie stands on its own.
I was going to say, and that's the point I was going to make. I think that cloud is a little too thick. I think the
agree.
movie sort of exudes it itself. I think the movie kind of walks in an era of, we are doing something that's meaningful. And I don't mean to say that they're being cynical about that. I think they come from good intentions. But still, the movie has that kind of aura of...
It's a little
It
self-aware.
matters.
I agree.
We are well...
We're an important movie.
Watch
me now.
we are well-meaning people trying to say meaningful things about an important topic that we care about. And I think that that's all completely like above board. But I think the movie kind of gets stifled in that in a certain way. But there are these emotions. I think that there is something that, like to your point, Scott, I think there is something underneath there that I think one has to kind of dig at a little bit, because you have to kind of fight through a certain amount of production design and costume design and all of the for your consideration ads we're going to be seeing for the next couple of months.
For sure. We're already seeing them.
In terms of this movie. So I think that the hot button topicality is one of the least interesting things about the movie.
Completely
I think
agree.
the story itself it survives on its own merits.
Are we just cynical, though, because we remember all the Miramax campaigns from the late 90s? And this kind of feels like that, like in the ads, they tell you that it matters. But again, I should not even think about that. As you say, I should ignore that. I should push that part out of my brain and just look at it as
go
a
with the
film.
movie.
Absolutely. It's impeccably made. Yeah. It's really safe. It doesn't surprise me really ever a whole lot. It didn't really take a whole lot of chances for some very daring subject matter, especially given the time. The movie itself does not take a whole lot of chances, and that bored me.
The only thing that did surprise me was the strength of Alicia Vikander's role.
She's great in it, yeah.
Because, okay, I get it. She's going to be the suffering, supportive wife, but she is so much more than that. For all of the things that you pointed out in the sense of just her arc and how she's a stronger character, that's what surprised me. Okay. And again, when you look at the time, it was 100 years ago in Denmark. I mean, this was not in 2015 and you're watching Bravo.
Yeah, and I will say that I think what Hooper is trying to do is, in terms of that safeness, because I agree with that. I think that one of the things he's trying to do is make the story accessible enough to an audience. I think the fact that it really is kind of done as a love story is partly by design to say, if people out there are like, well, I'm kind of concerned about, a guy becoming a girl, I don't know about that. If you do it as a love story, then it feels more palatable to maybe an audience that might reject it otherwise.
And a tastefully made love story.
Because, for instance, we're huge fans of Tangerine.
Yes.
A great movie.
Amazing.
Top 10.
But that movie does not try to be accessible in the same type of way. It is very unapologetic and lets those characters be those characters.
And that's a visceral
yes,
film.
and it's a superior film, but I think that type of movie that will only play to a smaller audience, where I think with The Danish Girl, they're trying to expand it out. And I think you see what some of the limitations are, frankly, of trying to do a movie like that.
What's so funny with Tangerine, I'm sorry to cut you off. What's so funny with Tangerine, though, it may not be trying to be accessible, but its emotions are truer.
Yes, I would agree with that.
It ends up being more immediate and easier to connect with because the characters are so real and they're right there.
And they're funnier, and you feel like you don't feel like with The Danish Girl, where I feel like there's a certain amount of, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to respond to this, but I want to be respectful to the film. Tangerine is just funny. And it just lets them be themselves. And
I was just going to say, if we get nothing out of this review for The Danish Girl, it's that you should see Tangerine.
Right. Double feature. Okay, so what are your numbers then, fellas?
Okay, I'm going with a 9. Number 9.
Number 9, all right.
I give it a 7.
I'm also saying 7, and I got to write about this today for RogerEbert.com, and I'm like, I got to sort through all my conflicting feelings here. I'm going to try to be high road about this. Okay, so our average is 7.2. It's at 82% on the tomato meter, and we'll be up there, I'm sure, on a lot of top 10 lists and a lot of awards listings. So enjoy. Have a good holiday. Bye.